Welcome to Let's Get Writing Author Reads, and this is one of my favorite parts of the Let's Get Writing platform, where my guests actually read from their books and share their work, and we get to talk about it, and I hope you enjoy it. And my guest today is Tom Moore. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Catherine.
So we're going to get some reading from you today from your book, My Father's Son, I'm thinking.
Yes.
I'm going to get it over here. Put it up on the screen for people so they know. And this is your newest book. It was out with Flanker Press this May, so it's hot off the press.
Just out.
Just out. And so I'll let you set the stage for this, and we can have a little more of a chat after. You let people know what you're going to do.
Okie doke. So my book starts with my main character, Felix, in a midlife crisis. He's a retired school teacher, and we find him at the edge of a cliff, contemplating life and its alternatives. So he's rescued from this, really it's a depression, by a phone call from an ex-girlfriend, and he's drawn back into the past, where he goes back home to find his father in a battle against a big oil company that has come to the small community in Newfoundland to frack for oil. And everybody's happy in the community that they're getting a lot of money for land leases. But father is not happy at all, and he's fighting. So I'm going to read a little bit from the beginning, where you'll meet two or three of the main characters. You'll sort of get an idea about his father. I'm not sure if father's in this scene. And you'll meet the ex-girlfriend whose phone call drew him out of his gloom and into this new battle that he's in with his father, on his father's side, against a big oil company from West Texas. Let's go. I loved my father, but our relationship had always been eclipsed by his crazy battles with authority. Father had moved here from the mainland, where he worked as a printer for a publishing house. His priority was always the current battle against some evil that he was determined to fight. There was little room in it for the boy who ran behind him like a doting lapdog. Father barely noticed me as I achieved success in school and at university. Where he had strong opinions on every topic, I took the path of least resistance. It wasn't worth the fight, so I just agreed with people. Besides, I had my own troubles with a doomed marriage and a new job in the city. So father and I drifted apart. And eventually, I stopped trying. I parked at the Curlew post office as I went back to the town I had left years before, and I spoke to the guy behind the counter, a thick-set fellow with jeans, a plaid shirt, and a baseball cap. It was not official Canada Post attire, and when he turned around, another surprise greeted me. He was a she, confirmed by the brass nameplate on her shirt that said Polly Pickett. Can I help you? Miss Pickett asked with a smile. Hi, I used to live here, I said. Well, congratulations. Or should I say, welcome back. She was teasing the stranger, and her smile widened. I smiled back and said, I'm looking for a friend. Aren't we all? She said. Another big smile. She had white, even teeth. No, seriously, my friend Tammy Green just moved back here, and I'm on a visit. Polly became serious. Privacy concerns. What? Privacy concerns. People have privacy rights, and I can't give information to a stranger. Ma'am, I'm no stranger. I grew up here. Walter Ryan's my father. Tammy Green was my girlfriend. You can see my house from here. I pointed out the door, which then swung open, to admit John Fury, the local garage owner. "Morning, Polly. Morning, Felix," he said. "Haven't seen you in a while," he added. He used his key, scooped his mail from the box, and exited back out through the door. Polly said, "Tammy lives in her mum's house. Third one on the right," she pointed. The day was warm, as early July replaced the cool, breezy days of June. I left the SUV at the post office and walked along the familiar road. Memories and feelings of childhood returned, with the pungent smells from the spruce woods. The old church looked down its nose at us from Church Hill, but a few loose shingles and crumbling concrete suggested a more casual upkeep these days. The fence needed a fresh coat of paint, and one rail had come off from the wooden stake. I passed my father's house, but I didn't go in. Our neighbor, George Williams, lived next door, and a tractor seemed to be at work on his land. I passed the large empty lot where White's store, later my store, had been. I wanted to visit Tammy first. She was at the clothesline on her mother's house. I knew this would be an awkward reunion. She paused with a plastic clothes basket on one hip, which reminded me of how she used to hold her books on her skinny hip years ago. She gave me a saucy chewing gum kind of look, which faked a hardness that she did not possess. Tammy was always trying to look tough. I approached with some caution, and she waited for me to speak first. "Hi." "Hi right back to you," she said, saucy as a cracky, and flicked a towel across the clothesline. "I said I'd be out this way." She jabbed a wooden clothespin into the towel, then turned back to me. "I wanted you to know about your land. The oil company is surveying it, and your father doesn't seem to grasp the situation." "Okay, what's the situation?" "They may want to buy it, maybe make me an offer," I said. "No, it's a crowd from the States, North Dakota. They're not a normal oil company. They're called frackers." I blinked as she said the word like a curse. Frackers. "Yes, they don't drill down like a normal oil well. They pump a solution into the ground to split up the rock, and it poisons the drinking water." "No, Tammy, that was banned around here years ago. It was stopped in Port-au-Port, but it's still perfectly legal." "Then what's the problem?" "The company is owned by John Barron, and they're buying up the land on your side of the road." "That could be a good thing." "Or it could poison the soil and spoil our drinking water. We don't know." "Well, that's just it. We don't know," I said. There were no half measures with Tammy. Her big eyes flashed and her free hand whirled across her face as she talked. She had rounded out nicely as she aged, the same way some skinny people come into their looks in middle age. She turned to go into the house, stopped and said to me, "You want to come in for a beer or a cup of tea?" "No, I'll drop in on Father. Let me know what you find," she said. "Okay, thanks for calling me," I said. She walked into the house. I stopped for a bit and looked at her door, which had not been closed. I could go in for a beer, see what happens. A tall young man with a sharp dress jacket and a briefcase came out. She walked behind him on the step as he turned to kiss her. "See you this evening, Joel," she said. Then she saw that I was still there. He looked up too. "Hi," I said. "I'm Felix Ryan." "I know who you are," he said, and walked right past me to his car, a lead gray Jaguar. Tammy looked, then went back into the house, and closed the door. There you go. There's a look at some of the main characters in that story. No, I can't hear you. We're still on mute, I think.
There we go. I'm on mute. I'm used to putting other people on mute, but now I'm back.
Put on mute.
We should have mute buttons for everyone, eh? That'd be great. Another benefit of video. That was great, Tom, and just kind of drawing into the character and feeling the tension between those two. Can you only imagine? I loved it. And Polly, and I guess that endorsement when I forget the other guy, he walked in, who owned the garage, and said, "Hi, Felix." That was the endorsement he got. Yeah, he got the go ahead to find out where Tammy.
Right. That's exactly right. John Ferry kind of established Felix's credentials as a town local.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty slick way to do it, and I felt it the same way when you just read it as when I read it myself. I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cute. He's in now."
Yes.
So small town, and you grew up in a small town like that, no doubt.
Oh yes, Avondale and Conception Harbor and Conception Bay.
Yeah. Wow. So there's some of that for us there. All right. So where are we going now? Where are we going to drop in?
Well, I could do another reading if you wish.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Give us another sample.
Give you another sample. Why don't we go right to the very beginning? This is the first page of the book.
All right.
It sort of gives you an idea of the depression or the crisis that this fellow has gone through. Let's take her from there. Ready?
Yep, I'm ready. I'm going to mute again.
Okay, doke. All right. My Father's Son, Chapter 1, Page 1. "Hey, are you all right?" the stranger asked. I opened my eyes and blinked the rain from my lids. "Yes, I'm fine," I said, and stepped back from the cliff. I looked down over the ledge to the sea. He stood in the rain with his old retriever, who looked idle, wet, and bored. They both smelled of damp dog. "Those rocks can be slippery when wet," he said. He smiled and pointed to my black leather shoes. His tone reminded me of my father, critical and helpful at the same time. "Have a good one," he said, and walked away. At the harbor entrance, I saw an iceberg drift south on its journey from water to ice and back to water. The foghorn sent a mournful boom out to sea every 30 seconds. It was another morning of rain, drizzle, and fog. I needed a beer. The Ship Inn is the oldest bar in St. John's, and today I felt like one of its original patrons. The usual Felix best pulled me a Guinness, and I found a table. I was a middle-aged high school teacher sitting in a bar with my friend, Mr. Guinness. The door burst open on a breeze from Solomon's Lane, and several young people rushed in. They were dressed for work in downtown offices and were here for the lunch special. Beef sandwich with fries and a pickle. Bright lives in front of them, full of optimism, nicely dressed, especially the girl. I noticed one of the lads looking at me, and after he ordered, he came over to my table. "Mr. Ryan?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Do you remember me?" I didn't. "Why, yes," I said. "Clarenville. I was in your English class in Clarenville." "Sure," I said. "Nice to see you again." Robert Cashin, he said, saving us both some embarrassment. Of course, Robert. Do you remember chasing me out into the parking lot? He asked. Boom. The memory flashed clear as glass across my mind. It was my first year teaching. I was writing on the blackboard, my back to the class. Other teachers had warned me about young Robert. Trouble. Attitude. I heard my classroom door slam shut. And before I knew it, he had fled. He was AWOL, and I was 25 years old. I bolted after my lost sheep and caught him just as he reached the road. I grabbed him, avoiding his swinging arms, and got him in a headlock. We were both cursing and swearing as I dragged him back into the school. You were a real funny guy, Robert said, jarring me back into the present. And you were a bag of tricks yourself, I said, sipping my Guinness. I'm working here in St. John's these days, he said. Staying out of trouble? I asked. I'm articling with Barnes and Cooper. Now I make a living from other people's troubles, he joked. Clever lad. I knew you had it in you. But he was looking at me, thinking. Then he said, I really appreciate what you did that day. It was my first year, I explained. I didn't know what I was doing. No, he said. No. And we both ran out of words. Words, perhaps about caring, and strangers, and lives not grown, and fledglings not flown. But for me, the memory showed a reversal of fortune since then. He was a young lawyer on his way up, and I was in a bar drinking at noon. Robert held out his hand, and I was happy to shake it. Thank you, he said, as if he had been practicing it for some time. You're welcome, I smiled for the first time that day. Well, that'll do. That'll do for an introduction. See how gloomy and miserable he is when we start. And as I say, he gets a phone call from the past and he's brought right back into the real world. Thank God.
Thank God. And I love, like, you know, some of my favorite lines, like, I needed a beer. It just says so much, right? Like, it's just like, and then the drizzle, rain, and fog. And then I was sitting in the bar, a middle-aged high school teacher, sitting in the bar with my friend, Mr. Guinness. Like, I mean, just that. You say so much. We've got him covered. You know, we know exactly where he is. Those were just some of the lines that I just loved. And there was another one too, but I should have marked it. Anyway, that was great reading. And I really enjoy listening to you read your work.
I enjoy hearing comments like yours. I love to hear back from my readers what works for them and what doesn't work, because this is an ongoing process. A lot of the lines are experiments. And on my Facebook site, I get comments from people that, you know, that I've met over the years, and some of them are my former students, and some of them are my friends. But often their pleasantries are like, nice to see you, great reading, congratulations. You know, what you want to hear is what line worked for you, what line didn't work for you, because it's a continual process of editing. So I'm delighted for you to give me 3 lines that you say worked for you. That's good.
Oh, very much. Yeah, well, they nailed the characters so quickly, you know, and the other thing about it, the fact that he chased Robert out of the classroom, had him in a headlock. And I thought, like, this tells me a lot about, he's depressed, but there's kind of an earnest soul in there. Right away, I felt like, you know, he wanted to make a difference. He had something on his mind when he started teaching. And when that, you know, you couldn't get away with that.
It's something that didn't seem to pan out in his current life.
No,
you know, there's a lot of there's a story there about a lot of hopes and dreams and ambitions that sort of fell upon dry ground.
Yeah,
Rocky
I know.
soil. They didn't quite pan out the way he had hoped.
No, you get that really fast, but there was something in there about him, right? That there was something within his character by that very thing that he did by bringing Robert back in, and look where Robert is now. What if he'd never gone? What if he'd never gone out there and taken that moment to bring Robert back into the classroom? Would he be the lawyer then? I thought there was just a lot. No, I thought there was a lot in that, and kind of makes sense as you go through the book and you get to know him better. It does. So I added the Facebook up here on the bottom for people because you do reading every week there.
Every Thursday, anytime after 7 o'clock. I do it live 7 o'clock, but anytime after Thursday, people tune in like Fridays, anytime. And I really would like some comments about what worked for you, you know, as a reader, what worked and what didn't work, but especially what you liked, because I could work and make sure I continue in that vein.
Absolutely. And you also give away a book on that night, don't you?
I give a free book every Thursday night. I've given out about 50 so far. Every Thursday night, we draw a name from a hat, anyone who's kind enough to share my video.
Excellent. And Tom, something just popped into my mind and out of my mind. But when you're there, it runs about a half an hour, is it roughly?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay.
I read for about 5 or 6 and then chat about writing and chat about my projects, my books, and life in general. Excellent.
And let's just let everyone know that if they haven't read this one, to read it. There's a prequel to this one. You have a copy of it there?
Yeah, the sign on my father's house. His father, I told you, was so contrary. He put a big sign up on his house condemning Joe Smallwood. And
yeah, it's right here.
The town loved Joe Smallwood. And he had his jaw broken twice, and he reveled in it. He thought he's like Don Quixote de la Mancha, always tilting at windmills. That's father. I love him.
And there's the carryover onto this book. It says the signs on the ground. God damn Smallwood.
Well, you'll notice there's not the bad word damn. It's spelled D-A-M like a beaver construction.
Yeah.
The vulgarity on my cover.
Oh, well, there you go.
And it's into the story, father misspells the word. So it's worked into the plot.
It's all covered. And there are more books. There's another book coming that's going to follow this one as well.
Yes.
Right? The story of Joel. Yeah.
Yeah. The book of Joel. You know, like it's
the book of Joel.
A biblical reference. You got the book of this one, the book of that one. Well, this is the book of Joel, his son.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you so much for taking the time to read and sharing some insights and letting people know what you want to hear back from them. And hopefully they'll see this and they'll give you some of that feedback that you like to have. And you're right. You are right on with that, because as writers, that's gold, just to find out exactly what your readers do, because readers take their book and they go home and they read it and then they get the next book. So when you get that little bit of feedback, and in many ways, you've had lots of feedback, Tom, because I look at your bio here and the awards you received and the recognition. For example, the first book in this series was the of Newfoundland Reads 2020. So you do get feedback and recognition, but there's nothing like immediate on the Facebook page.
Yeah, well,
excellent.
I want to thank you. Now, it's wonderful to get the exposure that you're giving my work and the attention that you're drawing to it, because it's all about getting people to read the book.
Excellent. Well, we have an absolutely gorgeous day here on the Rock in Newfoundland. I think you and I should both get out there and enjoy it.
Absolutely right. Thank you again.
Thank you. You're very welcome, and I hope to meet you in person sometime soon.
That would be lovely.
And bye, everyone, and thank you for joining us on Author Reads. And if this is the first show you're seeing, please know that there's a full interview with Tom on Let's Get Writing, and all of these are carried on youtube.com, Catherine Taylor TV. And we'll keep bringing you the shows if you just keep subscribing and watching. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.